Hi everybody, my name is Dr. Felice Cellini and I'm blessed and grateful to be in recovery, and welcome to our Why Wait for Recovery Thursday evening recovery community meeting.
Hi, my name is Heidi and I'm so blessed and grateful to be here. We get together, a group of peeps, twice a week to discuss recovery. We learn from each other's stories and experiences of strength and hope. And it's called the Why Wait for Recovery community. And we either get together in the room in Davie, South Florida, or people join us virtually from all around the world in our virtual waiting room. And basically, everyone is welcome. If you want to hop into the conversation, either shoot us a text on Facebook or at sowhywait.net, and you can jump into our virtual room as well and join in what we're speaking about.
Well, thank you. You didn't do your shtick.
Oh, and
I'm
my
a
shtick.
this,
I am. So I never did the shtick. So what we're actually speaking about is, so I am a compulsive overeater. I'm an emotional eater. I'm a food addict. I had weight loss surgery in 2016. I probably gained and lost over 600 pounds in my lifetime. But the thing is, it's really not about the weight. And for me, it's more about that feeling of how do you live being happy even though you've got everything you ever wanted and you don't feel full on the inside. And that was recovery.
Yeah, and so I am a drug addict, alcoholic, anorexic in recovery. When you say that we had everything that we ever wanted, you mean that on the outside, like
Right.
stuff. We had all this
so
stuff,
much stuff
that we ever wanted, but spiritually we were pretty broken and pretty empty, so we actually didn't have anything that we wanted or needed. If we look at it that way, so that we could be happy. And you guys, when we talk about recovery, we're going to talk about getting some happy. When you talk about that spiritual change, we're talking about getting some happy on and learning to live our life, changing our perspective, and learning to live our life in gratitude as opposed to coming from a place of lack.
and also living our lives in a place where we can be present in the moment without doing that time travel of focusing on being somewhere else or focusing in the past, or just being able to enjoy the moment with the person that we are, us, me, myself, without needing anything else other than just being right here, right now, and being really grateful for it.
Because the truth of the matter is we are right here, right now, and that's the only place we are.
Right, and when I was
That's
using
it. We're not tomorrow, and we're not yesterday. We're right here, right now.
Well, when I was using an inactive addiction, I was in so many other places. I was 10 years ago, I was 5 years in the future, I was everywhere else. I was sitting and controlling what I thought you should be doing, and I was in all different places, even though I couldn't do any of that stuff.
Right.
My mind was crazy.
Right, you forgot the word. I thought I was
thought.
controlling. Right, because you weren't controlling anything, and you weren't in control of your own crazy either.
And that's thought control.
And we do have control, you guys, over our perspective and our actions, and that's the only thing that we do have control over. So welcome, everybody. We'll do a go around.
Well, I think before we do that, let's just quickly...
We have to do something else that I forgot to do, obviously. Go.
So one of the reasons that we actually get together is we are a support group. We really are a community, and people join us because being alone out there and thinking that we've got all these crazy thoughts out there and doing this alone is a terrible place to be. We think we're different. We think that we can't do it. We think that there's something wrong with us, and that's how I felt. And one of the things that we provide is community, and this is how we grow, because some of us are too scared or too shy or whatever the reason is to actually speak about what we're struggling about. And even though when we need help, we can't ask for it, when we share as a community, very often we hear our stories through other people's mouths and they're sharing. And that's what helps us get healthy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, and when you talk about that, when we talk about being alone, you guys were so full of shame and full of guilt and full of, I can't believe that this is the place that I'm at and I don't know how to reach out, right? And we do feel so alone, and that's the thing about community, guys, is that it does make a difference, doesn't it? When you're feeling like, when you're going through a struggle and you have somebody to reach out to, right? Or you reach out to our community on Facebook. We have What's Eating You, which is our private community on Facebook, and we have the community of each other, and we reach out to each other and we help each other through our struggles, and also get to share our happy with each other as well.
And the reason why we also do that is my best thinking put me in the place where I went for weight loss surgery. So my thoughts were so upside down, and the messaging that I was receiving were really messages that were hurting me rather than putting me in a healthy place. And when I talk to people who have got really good and strong recovery, and I want more of that, I get really good information than dealing with people who have a lot of opinions that keep me sick. And a lot of those opinions also sit inside my head. So that's one of the reasons community is really important, because we understand each other, we don't judge each other. And that's essential for us to be able to get well. And when we talk of using, it doesn't matter what you're picking up. It can be food, it could be alcohol, it could be drugs, it could be gambling, it could be men, it could be cigarettes, it could be anything and everything, because I'm an addict, so I've used many things, sometimes one at a time, sometimes a multitude of different things at a time. But whatever it was to shift my thinking to a place where I wasn't feeling, where I could be numb or projecting somewhere else, rather than being present and giving myself the absolute grace and the absolute gift of being able to be present and just deal with that, whatever it looked like. And that's a very scary place to be.
Yeah, and so it's never about the food, which is what you just said. It's always about the why. Why am I doing the things that I'm doing? What is it that I'm trying to change? Why do I need to be happier when I'm happy and feel nothing when I'm scared and feel something else because it's Tuesday? And so we're going to learn about those things, and we're going to learn about the things that we are in control of, and we're going to learn about having some acceptance so that we can live a happier life.
And part of that process is, these thoughts, when I'm in active addiction, my thoughts become my actions. I am the soldier that's marching to my thoughts. And when they say, go to McDonald's or go do this, I can't say no, and I'm just doing stuff and I'm just acting. Being in recovery puts us in a position of choice, which puts us in a position of power, because we're able to choose the things that we are putting into our body and into our mouths. And we're learning how to deal with that. So it shifts the paradigm, and it isn't just calls to action through thinking, but rather through different strategies and techniques that we learn.
Yeah, we learn that feelings aren't facts, you guys. So just because I feel sad, or because I feel happy, or because I feel confused, they're just feelings, and so they're here right now. It doesn't mean that I'm going to have those feelings in 5 minutes or 5 hours. And also when I, just because I get that urge to use, you guys, people talk about, I can't stop using, I can't stop. You can, because we did, right? We did. I mean, we put down drugs, we put down alcohol, we put down binging, we put down purging, we put down behaviors that were harmful to us. So yes, it definitely can be done. Is it easy? No. Is recovery for people who want it? No. Everybody wants to get better. Is it for people who need it? Everybody in active addiction needs recovery. It's for the peeps who are willing to do whatever it takes to get well. It's about the willingness to get well. You got to have the willingness first, and the want and the need, that's okay to have too. But without the willingness, we get nowhere.
And it takes bravery and courage to be able to say, do you know what, maybe if I try something different, things are going to look different. If I've been thinking the same way and doing the same thing over and over and over and over and over again and getting the same results, at which stage does that actually stop and I try doing something different? So that is part of the learning that we do here. So our topic for tonight was actually finally being honest. And that is the beginning of the journey of finally being honest with the most important person in our lives, which is really ourselves.
Yeah, and so I love that. You guys know I love quotes, and so I love that quote, if you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. And so if I wake up this morning and I say, no matter what, I know I'm not going to be able to stay clean, and maybe I could do it for 10 minutes, and maybe I could do it 10 hours, but I know when tonight comes, I'm not going to be able to, then you won't. So at least let's start the day putting it out there that today is the day that I'm going to get well, right? That I will choose to change something so that I can get well. And that's where we need to start.
And also, let today be the day that if you use today, just be honest about it. Listen, I used today. I thought if I could cut down a little bit, I still used. So that is the shift. When we start seeing those actions in ourselves and our behaviors, then that is stuff that we can actually start working on once we are honest about it.
Yeah, and so that part's a little sucky, and it's really hard.
It's
really hard.
the hardest thing not to do.
Yeah. But and it's going to be more about getting healthy and less about how we feel. And Haiti, when you said that you have to have courage, and you have to be brave and take that courage and that bravery and to do something different, just because we're scared shitless doesn't mean that we can't be brave. right? We could be scared and still choose to be courageous. Remember, you guys, being courageous or being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means doing the hard thing. It means doing the thing that we're afraid of, right? And we talked, the last time we met, I believe it was the last time we met, we talked about how, you know, we live our life in addiction, and that sucks, but at least we know what that looks like. And so thinking about living our life without our addiction in the beginning especially is worse than thinking about living our life addicted for the rest of our life. And that, if you think about that, that's horrible. Really horrible.
I love that you brought this up because I had that catastrophic brain. You know, I can wake up at 4:30 in the morning or 4 o'clock in the morning, either going, I'm hungry, or start panicking that I'm losing my job or this is going to happen. And when I actually think of it, I'm actually lying in bed and I'm safe. Like nothing is actually going. I'm safe. I mean, nothing is really going on, and this
There's
crazy
a lot going
brain,
on.
Right, but it's all these
It's just
crazy
not happening out
thoughts,
there.
okay, and all these fears and everything sitting inside my head. But they're not really, and who knows if they do come true and if they don't come true, but at that point in time, they're just thoughts inside my head. And all of a sudden, I'm in a flat panic and the heart's going and all these crazy things are going, and then I get up and I start crapping on everybody. Like, that's the way that I act. So, I think, are we ready to?
I'm ready. You ready?
I'm always
Okay,
ready.
everybody
So
ready?
Let's check in with our friends, and I see Karen's up there. Hi, welcome back.
Karen, everybody say welcome back to Karen.
Oh, wait, there's also a
Karen.
big deal today. Today's Liz's birthday.
Oh,
Happy
happy birthday, Liz. So, does anybody want to start, or should I start calling people out?
So Dawn's first.
All right, Dawn. You said we should call people out. You're up first.
Let's see, I just came back from a week in Boston, or north of Boston, my hometown. It was magnificent. We're talking about, what's the theme is honesty and finally getting honest. Well, I saw a very, very close friend, old friend, that I spent only a very brief time with last time I was home. So we got together for about 4 hours and we talked about everything, and I told her about, you know, where I was in my recovery and how, you know, what my length of time was and what I was recovering from, and I was really open and honest about the whole thing. And it was a little bit hard because, you know, I was a little bit ashamed.
Right, and that has to do with your
Ego.
right. I didn't even have to call on Angeli for that. You said ego. Good girl.
But it was great, and then she was really honest with me about some stuff, and it was just this great interaction, a true, heartfelt, honest interaction.
So you're talking about being authentic.
It was fabulous.
Right? Instead of being full of shit.
Yeah.
And you guys, ego is what I think your opinion of me is. And when I have no good opinion of myself, I'm going to depend on what your opinion of me is so that I could feel good about myself, which allows me to feel bad about myself if you're having a bad day. So that's all crazy.
Yeah.
So when we let go of that, the shame, which means, you know, I'm afraid of, and anyway, shame is a negative fear. And so fear is always, I'm afraid of losing what I have or getting what I want. If I tell my friend this thing about me, this horrible thing about me, then perhaps I'll lose her respect or her love or our friendship, right? And that's a scary part.
When the exact opposite.
Yeah, it usually does. Isn't that funny? Usually does. Yeah, when we let down that wall, you guys, and we let people see how we are, we allow people to reach out to us and to share and to be open and honest with us. And who knows that day if that person really needed to be open and honest with someone, right?
Yeah.
So good for you. Yeah, I'm really glad that you did that. And I don't know if 8 months ago you would have done that.
I doubt it.
Yeah, because even when we were doing workshop, remember when we were in workshop and we were talking about different things that happened, and you had a lot of shame about stuff that wasn't in your control, and just being open and honest and saying how you felt, and letting people see who you are, man. You know, so we all like you. So, no, really, I mean, you present lovely and you're helpful and you're of service and you're kind, and those are all the things that you get to share with somebody and get to be of service, really be of service, right? When you're opened up like that. So, thank you. Thanks for sharing. So, oh, they're back on the big screen so I can see everybody again. Okay, who's up next?
I'll share
Yes.
something in terms of honesty. It was my birthday last weekend. A friend of mine.
Happy birthday.
It was really good. So anyway, a friend of mine wanted to take me out to dinner, and I almost canceled because of that whole conversation of like going out to dinner. What do I eat? And I just got in that moment to go because of just being with people. And I looked at on the menu before I went online, and I saw exactly what I could eat. And when I got
Well, you saw exactly, you could have eaten anything.
Well, I
So
could-
let's
right,
rephrase
yeah.
it. You picked what you chose to eat,
right,
right? It was a choice that you made, because you
Yes.
could have eaten anything.
correct.
Okay, so you saw what you were gonna choose to eat.
Yeah, and last year, I remember when I went to this, I decided to go back to a restaurant that we went to last year because I knew I could choose to eat certain things. And it was such a great evening because when I came in, I didn't look at the menu. I knew exactly what I wanted. I didn't need to put my head into other things that weren't going to serve me. But I also see the how I would have canceled out and not have done that. Like that would be typical. I don't want to just do that and live life. It's like that fear of, am I going to make it? And then I realized when I was there, when I choose, or whatever I choose, I chose to keep to the abstinent program. It was like no one was telling me I needed to eat something else, and it was great. It was just like a good freeing feeling. But so that was good. And then the other thing that happened, and it was something you said about the shame, and I had spoken to you, Felicia, already about it, is when I woke up on Monday. I don't weigh myself too often, but I weighed myself and I had lost weight, and I was really excited. And I know it's not about the weight, but I was really excited, and I told my husband I lost a few pounds, and then when I wrote it on my calendar, I realized I didn't lose as much as I did, but I still like lost a pound instead of 3. And he made a comment that I went ballistic over, but I realized it's because I was like afraid of like keeping it going or losing what I had, and also not feeling, because he made a comment because I had not tracked my food all weekend, and he said, you know, you might have lost more if you tracked your food, and that just like set a whole avalanche.
Right, and so we talked about this. So he said to you, well, maybe you would have lost more if you would have been checking your food. And you heard that as?
I'm a piece of doo-doo.
Right, I'm a piece of shit because I wasn't doing what I was
Right.
supposed to do.
Right.
Was that his intention? Maybe and maybe not. But we're gonna make up that no, it wasn't his intention. But it's still the way that you took it, right?
Yes.
This is the big part of the conversation, right? We see
Right.
the world the way that we are, not the
Yeah.
way that it's happening, just the way that we are. And so he said something and you took it personally and it pissed you off, right? And how'd
Yeah.
the rest of your day go?
I apologized right away, but
how did you
had
feel?
The rest of, I felt crappy. I felt crappy
Yeah.
because I let my emotions get the best of me, and of course I take it
No,
out.
you let your negative emotions
I let my
get
negative
the best of
emotions
you,
get the
right?
best.
You didn't say, "Wow, you know what? He cares so much about me that he's going to help me out, and I feel so great that I'm in this wonderful
Right,
relationship
right.
with somebody that cares about me." You said, "You know what? That goddamn bastard. And who does he think he is? And he must think I'm a piece of shit, and he shouldn't be talking to me like that." And it screwed up your day. Right? That's a choice we make, you guys. Right? We're gonna make things up. If I don't know what you mean, and I'm gonna make something up, I might as well make up something happy, like he's a great dude who cares about me, instead of making up in my head, you know, he thinks I'm fat, and he thinks I'm worthless, and he thinks that I don't have any control, and he thinks that da 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 da. That's all your own negative self-talk.
Right.
Because if you actually thought, I am so awesome, I just did this and I feel awesome, and he said that, you would have said, thanks babe, maybe you can help me out with that next week. Right? So you believe what you believe because you believe it. You hear from what I say what you believe about yourself because you take it personally. Okay?
And the other piece of it that I saw today was I just got out of, it's quick to get out of the habit of tracking the food. It was
Okay.
like, okay, you know, like part of that craziness, I can handle it. But I saw, I just saw I was being sloppy. And it took me until today to actually start tracking my food again. And I felt so good. Like, I think it's like this fear of, it just was a fear. And I'm like, what am I afraid of? I know what to eat. I know I feel better when I track it. But I noticed it was just that fear that I was going to not be perfect.
And not be good enough.
not be good
right?
enough. Still,
So I have a question for you, and this is going back to your husband. So did you apologize as soon as everything happened, or at the end of the day after you'd been thinking about all this stuff?
I had apologized right away. I've learned.
So I did the same thing. So I'd go and I'd like really be mean, and then I'd apologize, and then I'd still be festering in it the whole day. So my apology wasn't really a real apology. It was just because it was the right thing to do, because that's what I'd been taught. I'm a good girl on the inside. But I'd still be ruminating in this and festering in it, and it would still be pushing my day off that it wasn't 100% authentic and honest with myself. And that's, for me, is part of my learning, because I believe in apologizing when I do something wrong. It's just learning to do it at the right time. I mean, that's
Or it's not even that. It's learning that I don't have to take everything that Gary says personally.
right, 100%.
I don't. He could be the
100%.
person that he is, and I could be the person that I am. And we can live in a world together where we have boundaries, and he knows what isn't acceptable to me in our relationship, and I know what's not acceptable to him, and I know the things that he is the person that he is, and I'm going to accept that unless it's something that's crossing a boundary. And so with your husband, it could have just even been a forgive them, for they know not what they do. Right? Was his intention to hurt you?
No, definitely not.
No, it was
So that
not.
was
And who got hurt? You did.
totally.
And you had anger. And whose day did it ruin?
It ruined. Well, I don't know. I can't speak for
Ruined,
him,
but I mean,
probably,
let's who to put
it ruined my
day
day because it just made me, the fear and the scared. And,
Yeah.
And then he didn't forgive me right away, which was part of.
Okay, and that's about him.
It's about him, and I
Right.
got it. I got it. He has this certain, comment that I got nervous about because I thought, okay, well, I got it. I did what I did, and the circumstances was. The next day he was great, and I didn't ask him what made him change because I was just grateful that we were back to being that.
What did
intimate
you get
experience.
nervous about? That he was going
holding
to
a
stay
grudge.
angry?
Yeah, holding.
And what's the worst thing that could happen if he held a grudge?
It would have been really difficult. Well, it just would have been.
It would have been what?
I was going to say difficult to just be with him because if he's in a grudge.
Okay, so meaning he's going to be crabby?
Crabby, yeah.
He's not physically abusive?
No.
Is he mentally abusive to you when he's crabby?
No, he just is silent.
He's
And watches
silent,
TV.
and so what do? You take that personally.
Yes.
So if you could put yourself in the position where you could say, you know what, I just made Jennifer really mad at me, and I know this is her thing. She's not going to talk to me for 48 hours, and you know what? I'm going to give her some space, and I'm going to love her from over here. And I know as soon as she's over it, she works it through, that we'll talk about it, and that's going to be okay.
Yeah.
So what if she's mad at me? It's just a feeling that she's having. If she's mad at me and she slashes my tires, and it cost me $800,000 to get new tires, I got a challenge.
Right.
But if she's angry with me so she doesn't feel like chatting with me today, so what? She's a human being going through her own shtick, right?
Yeah.
So if he gets mad at you, let him get mad. Let him get mad and let him get through it. Right? Does it mean he's going to call you up and say, I don't want to be your husband anymore?
No, not
No.
that argument.
Not today. No, okay. So
No,
what's
but
the
that's not
huge
fair,
fear
right?
about? Fear.
Yeah.
I'm going to lose what I have,
Yeah.
or I'm not going to get what I want. I'm not going to get his love and affection for the next 10 hours. Okay.
But it does go back to me being a piece of shit because it's
Of
not the first
course
time.
it does. It goes back to you feeling that
Feeling
way.
it, right? Yeah,
Right.
feeling it that way.
Right.
Yeah, because it's almost like I could see every single curve that had happened that we wound up being the same conversation, like the addict. Like I'm not going to do it again, but here I am doing it again, and
Yeah, and so you're going to do workshops, and we do a lot of work with the workshop when we do this. Dawn, we have a lot of Dawn's taking the workshop, so we do a lot of crying and a lot of scared and a lot of being scared to speak and talking about how we're feeling and understanding why it is we're doing what we're doing. So that at least if we understand it, we can choose to stay where we are for a while or choose to do whatever we need to do
Right.
to make a change, right? So it's about understanding and making a change for the better because it makes us happier. Not because it's going to make my husband happier, because you can't make your husband happy.
right.
That's about him.
Yeah.
But you can learn to get more happy inside of you. and the world turns the way that it does. Right? I can't control the way that you feel about me, but I can certainly control the way that I feel right now. That's about me. Yes.
So I just wanted to mention something about the workshop. For a lot of us doing it, it's really intense. It's a lot of work and it's intensive work. It's not something that we put out on the web. You know, they're private sessions with people who are here in the room or joining us in the virtual room, but it's not open up to the public that you can see it on Facebook or on YouTube. Because we understand the fear and we understand how difficult it is for some of us to start the process. You know, always starting something new is extremely scary.
Sure it is.
And you mentioned something really important, and that's something we'll go into later on, is, you know, as a food addict, planning ahead and having things that work for us are techniques that we learn. And those are definitely part of our journey. You know, even though we say it's not about the food, we have to also stop using. And that happens to be our substance of choice. And for some of it, it's a challenge, and we don't know what that looks like. And we need to relearn how to plan ahead and how to make decisions that are healthy choices and healthy decisions for us. And that's part of the journey that we learn together.
Yeah, until it becomes second nature. And you know, when I wanted to touch on real quickly too, you said, you know, I was going out to dinner and I was having this fear, and I'm going to tell you, it was a really long time before I could even go to a restaurant that had a bar in it. You know, because I smell the liquor and I could taste that liquor in the back, in the back of my throat just from smelling it. You know, I'm an addict. You know, I can't be around people that are buzzed. I can't. So that was quite a while. Actually, I chose not to because it used to piss me off because I was resentful at myself. And so I chose not to do those things. I don't have a challenge with it the majority of the time now, but there's still going to be times where my head isn't in that perfect space that someone's going to say, you want to come out to dinner, we're going out for drinks or whatever, and I'm going to say no thanks. You know, and by the way, you guys, no always means no.
Right.
Full sentence. No, I like to say no thank you, but no, that's all.
And there was a long time for me that restaurants were not a place for me to feel comfortable in. I'd meet people for coffee, I'd go to a movie, I'd do other things other than go and be in this predicament where I felt uncomfortable. Or I'd also host them at my home. You know, I love cooking, I love entertaining. So it's really choices. We've got a whole spectrum of choices, and we tend to focus in on the same things we've been doing over and over again for that limited time.
And I think the last piece interesting about like doing so well in the restaurant is I think the fear and just like a whole bunch of stuff in the letting go of the food that I'm choosing not to eat. It's always that thing of like, can it be done? And that
yeah, can I stay clean? You know what? And we goof about that, you guys, and we say some things and we giggle. That's the biggest fear, right? So remember, I don't have to think about whether or not I can or I can't or I choose to or choose not to have a drink on New Year's. Right? I know that right now for this moment, I'm good. And that's all I have to know is that right now for this moment, I'm good. And I'm going to tell you too, I'm allowed to be somewhere and say, you know what, I gotta go. And right now I'm gonna go. Everybody have a great night. Thanks so much for inviting me. I'm gonna go now.
So I wasn't always that brave or that honest. So I would phone police up and say, listen, if I text you, just call me, okay? And then I'll go,
it's like when
I'm gonna leave.
the blind date thing.
Right, so I'll lie to stay clean, okay? But I mean, at that stage was where my head was, because I'm a people pleaser, and that is, I know that's one of the
things you're working on, right?
And I'm working on it, and I know that's one of the things that could take me out. I mean, honestly, that is something I'm really working on. But a backup plan is not a bad plan to have, you know, especially when it comes to my recovery.
And I'm going to tell you something. There's very frank, Ange. You remember in the beginning where I'd say to Angeline, I would be hanging out, and I'd say to her, "You've got to go," and she would be like, "What? You know, like why?" And I was like, "Cause it's time for you to go." You know, and it wasn't anything personal. It doesn't mean I don't like you. It just means I'm ready to have my own space now. Or I'll call my sister in the morning and I'll say, you know what, we play Scrabble on Sunday. Every Sunday we sit out in the sun and play Scrabble. And I'll say, Rand, I'm not coming over. And you know what her answer always is back to me? Okay. Because that's what we do. Why? What do you mean? You know, somebody says to me, I can't make it. My thing is always, okay. Even you guys who like to give me the explanation, right? My thing to Angela is, I don't care. Like, okay, that's your shtick. I'm cool with that. That's your choice. Okay. You know, it doesn't change my world or change the person that I am. That it's okay. It's okay for you to want the things that you want. And I have no control over the things that you do or the things that you want or the things that you feel. I show up, I do my best to do my best. I'm in acceptance as often as possible. Let go of the things that I can't control, and I get to be happy.
And it's okay to ask for the things that we want, you know, to say the way that we're feeling. It's not that we're being malicious or vengeful or anything else. It's okay. As it is okay for anyone else, it's just as okay for us to be able to do it. And that's
Without the manipulation?
Without the manipulation and without the ego and without the poor me's and without the tantrums and speaking loudly and all the other stuff that I've used to get what I thought I wanted, okay? But,
So that somebody else want to be mad at you or have a bad
or
opinion of you?
or that I get what I want, and that wasn't always the best thing to get, because sometimes very often I'd get what I want, and then I'd go, "What the fuck do I do with this?"
Right,
Okay,
right.
that was that.
Or why was that my choice?
Right, 100%.
Yeah, so you don't have to do the thing where you call your sister and say, "Oh my God, you wouldn't believe it, but I looked outside and I thought that it was going to rain, and you know, I heard from Haiti and I think she's in a really bad mood. She's probably going to have a bad day today, and I don't know if I should be close to the house because she really might need me, and you know, Publix might close early today, and if it does, you know, then I'm not going to have the cauliflower that I wanted to make the cauliflower rice. And did you know that gas, I just saw that gas went up, and it's like an extra 4 cents a gallon if I drive all the way out there." We don't have to do all that. We could just say, "Oh, I'm not coming
I'm
today."
exhausted just
Why? Because I
listening.
don't want to. Exactly. So all of that stuff that we play in our heads is exhausting. And that's the way that we live our lives when we're in active addiction. When we have no idea of who we are, right? When we don't know how to just show up and do our best to do our best. And when I think if I say all of those things to you, you're going to excuse me and say, "Oh, you shouldn't come over today because, you know, of all those things, who cares, man? I ain't coming over." Okay, miss ya. See you next week. That's great. Done. Bam. Without all of that chaos and clutter that's inside our head when we're in active addiction. The fun thing about when we're in active addiction is we get to do all of that stuff, and we get to do all of that stuff about our food.
And not only that, we get to do it over and over and over again, and it gets
Constantly.
louder and louder and louder, and then we just don't hear anything else or anyone else anymore.
Yeah,
And that
and-
becomes our whole world,
Yeah.
and that's all we think about.
And we hide, which is what most of us do, right? We sleep,
And we
or
lie.
we stay in our rooms, or we
lie.
isolate. Yeah, and we always lie, man.
And we feel like crap, and then we get sick, and then we are really sick, and then it becomes really difficult to do those things that we were lying about not being able to do because we just can't do them.
Yeah, you know, it's so funny. It's so funny when we think about it. To stay out of active addiction, there's really only one thing that we quote unquote have to do, and that's not to pick up. Otherwise, when we stay in active addiction, all of this other stuff that comes naturally, for me, made me scared, terrified, actually frozen in fear, hysterical inside a whole lot of time, and so unhappy. And why wasn't I willing to put down the stuff that I was using to be sitting here? Because sitting here, you guys, is an awful lot nicer than sitting in that chair where some of you guys are sitting. Where is that for? You know, if we think about it, stepping into recovery is the most difficult, easy thing to do on the planet. Right? It's so incredibly difficult because we're so scared. Because no matter what shit our life looks like, it's the shit that we're used to.
And you know, there's another component.
There is?
There is.
Tell me what it
Firstly,
is.
it's not delivered by Amazon, and you can't read the description.
Which
And
I
you
have
can't
a
see what
challenge
you're
with that,
getting.
because I get
Okay.
everything.
And it's not something that you get the gold star once you get it, and it's not that tangible that you can explain to someone what it really is, because you have to go through the process. And can I tell you something? If I could give you recovery, I wouldn't. You know, because for me, the blessing has been in the process, because in the process, I've learned the most valuable, I've got the greatest gift of all, which is getting to know and love myself, which for 52 years I couldn't do.
Yeah, for me, I don't know. If I could have bought a little bit of recovery in the beginning, because
Oh,
in
yeah,
the
the
beginning, I'm
beginning
gonna tell you
sucks.
guys something, I needed to relearn how to tie my shoes. I needed to relearn how to stand up from this chair and sit down over there, because it was time to do something, because I was so friggin' petrified to live my life without using. I'm not kidding. So if I could have bought a little bit of that, just getting over the, I wanna die, 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 I wanna die right this second, so that I don't have to face all of this horror story that I'm making up in my head. then I would have bought a little bit.
That is so true. You know, when I think back on my first 90 days, and Laura, this reminds me of the conversation we had the other day as well, is I became incapable of doing the stuff that I used to do. I mean, I was just so stuck in being scared and
Miserable.
petrified and miserable and self-obsessed, and just like really everything became like a big deal. I didn't,
Yeah,
you know, I walked
petrified.
into the rooms knowing everything. I walked into this, I was a genius. I had the answers to everything until I started recovery and learned that
Yeah.
I know very little, and it became a whole new learning experience.
Yeah, yeah, and that the learning is part of our journey, and almost seems like the worse it was, kind of like that yin and yang, you know, like I was so miserable, and so now the difference is so different because I'm so happy, you know, when I do that comparison thing. No matter where you are, you guys, when I got clean, when I stopped drinking 10 years ago, which was my first bout of recovery, I was in my car sitting in front of a halfway house and nobody would speak to me. And I had no money and I had the clothes on my back and I had no food. And it was like, and I was basically put out on the street, and it was deal or not, we're done. You know, because all of the people, you know, we get clean for ourselves, but for me, my because was, you know, I have a family and I have other people that were watching me die, no matter what that was from, and who just couldn't watch me die anymore. And so when you get to that place and you are so scared and everything is so scary and you're so despondent, and sometimes, unfortunately, it takes for us to get into that place where we've got nowhere to go but up. You know, I had been in the hospital, I tried to kill myself, I had OD'd to try to kill myself, and that was the person that I was. And I'm still that same addict, except right now, I'm an addict in recovery. And I get to define myself a whole lot differently right now than I got to define myself before. You know, I was in there somewhere. I just needed to learn to deal with life the way that life was.
When you speak like that, it takes me back to that darkest place in my life where I really wanted to die but didn't have the courage to kill myself. I mean, I tried so many different things between the binging, the purging, all the crap that I did to myself, but I just couldn't kill myself. I mean, that's crazy. And when I reached that bottom of knowing that something had to shift or change, because there wasn't an out, you know, I wasn't the type of person to do other things to myself. I just reached that absolute bottom that I had to try. I Felice stepped into my world, and that really was the greatest gift and the greatest blessing.
And when we first met each other,
And
she had
the
no
biggest
clue about
cry.
recovery. None. She was gonna get weight loss surgery because she was gonna get skinny so she could get some happy, and it just doesn't work like that. You got the skinny.
I got
you
the
just didn't
skinny.
get the happy until you started learning about recovery.
Right. So
You're skinny and miserable.
I was. Now I'm skinny and happy.
Yay.
I get miserable at times. I'm still an addict. So trust me, for no reason I can become totally effed up and miserable just on the turn or something. But now in recovery
She's
is
a work
how
in
long
progress.
do I sit there? Because now recovery gives me the tools to be able to know where I am and shift that. I have a choice.
Yeah, that we have a choice.
I just want to say, like, to complete, like, I think from being in this program and the way you distinguish recovery, I actually like being in recovery, and I realized, like, all my life I had liked that and then gave it up because recovery became this bad word. And so I really like embracing recovery, and when you just said that, it's just like life in recovery. That's cool. I
Right,
like it.
recovery. We say that all the cool kids are in recovery. The bad word is active addiction. That little bad phrase, active addiction, that's the bad word. That's what kills us. That's what we allow to kill us. Okay, next up.
Do you want to check up online? Because
Yeah. Anybody online want to share? Anybody gonna share? I'm gonna start calling people out. Karen, welcome home.
Thank you.
Hi, Karen.
It's good to be home, and I need to be back in the community because I gave away all of the power and control I do have on the cruise. I used from the moment I set up foot on the boat till the moment I got off the boat. And I'm still trying to figure out why I did that. There wasn't a trigger of food because I knew exactly what kind of food there would be. It was something that was going on with me, and I'm still working through that, but I'm not happy with myself, but it is what it is.
Okay, and so thank you for sharing, and I'm happy with you because you're honest, And that part you should be real happy with yourself about. And you know, we say that it isn't about the food, so you know it wasn't about the food, right?
Right,
And so
right.
we all know that it wasn't about the food. So now it's finding out why I would give up what I had to be back to where I was with that guilt and that shame and the possibility of living sick again. And so it's going back to what you'll do. It's going back to the beginning and finding out where you guys, when I relapsed, I had 7.5 years clean, and I relapsed, and I used to say, I don't know how I relapsed. And then I'd say, oh yeah, I know how I relapsed. I ate the fucking pills. Like, that's how I relapsed. You know, why did I relapse? What was going on? That's what I needed to find out. Why I was walking around with some fear. I needed to find out and work through that so that I could re-step into, I needed to get clean so that I could re-step into recovery and then find out what it is that I needed to fix, you know, what perspective of mine I needed to fix so that I could stay on that path of recovery, which keeps me happy. Yeah, thank you.
I have a really good idea of what was going on, but I'm still, I wish I had thought about it before I went, but I didn't, and I did what I did. So I'm back, and we need this group, I need this community desperately.
And so we can never should have. And so as much as you and I wish we could go back before we, used, it sounds a lot nicer to have 10 years clean than 2.5 years clean for me, right? Ego, right? Wow, you guys are gonna think I'm real great if I have 10 years clean. I'm not sure how you think of me if I have 2 years and 4 months clean. That's my ego bullshit, right? Right, but we can't go back, but we can start from right now, right? And figure out we don't lose our recovery, you guys. We lose our clean time. We go back and find out where it is or where the fear was, and we learn from it, and we've taken the stuff that we learned from before and we wrap it all up together and we move forward, right?
And that's what I need to keep in mind, that I feel like I've lost my recovery when in fact I've lost the clean
Your clean time, right?
And I can go back and recapture, start again with that. And also figure out, like you just said, that's the part that's eating at me is the feeling that I've lost any gain I had.
You have
And
to say
so,
something too, so go ahead.
So I wanted to ask you, so how many days clean are you today?
Let's see. 7.
Awesome.
Right, so you're 7
You're
days back.
7 days back.
Yeah, and so I wanted to say like something really profound or important, but I have no idea what that was. 'Cause that was like 30 seconds ago. So, does anybody want to share with Karen? Go.
So, Karen, I relapsed last year in the summer, and it wasn't on food, it was on drugs, and I thought, I knew before I went that I could go. And I knew that I was going to use. In my head, I never discussed it with anyone. You know, they say relapse happens a long time before it does. And I
Before
thought
you pick up.
Well, before you pick up.
Right.
And I really thought I could control it and just use a little bit, and it was my old stomping ground, and it was on vacation. And it
No
was
one's
all
gonna
friend-
know,
no one's gonna
and I don't have to
know,
tell anybody.
and no one
and-
will, whatever. And can I tell you something? I thought it would start off as a little bit, and it did, and then it wasn't. And then it became really uncontrollable, and I couldn't stop myself, and I started doing really crazy stuff, and started embarrassing my family and embarrassing myself and doing really horrendous things. And it took me a while to stop. But the thing I've learned is that I'm an addict, and this addict brain follows me no matter where I go. I didn't choose to be one, and it's not always great. And can I tell you, I was filled with so much guilt and shame.
Shame.
So much shame. I couldn't talk to this one for ages, okay? And even then, I was lying.
Yeah, you were.
I was lying all the time, okay? I was in front of her. Hi, she didn't even know.
Well, I was in front of you high too.
I was at meetings. Yeah, okay,
So was
they didn't
I.
even know, okay? And the thing is, I knew, and that's the bottom line is I knew, and deep down I'm a good person, and for me it sits terribly in my soul. It affects me spiritually. That lying, it doesn't matter so much what you're thinking, but I beat myself up worse than anyone else who's going to do it to me, and that's a horrible place to be.
Yeah, and you know what I did want to say, because now I remember, was that, they say every time I picked up on a lie. So we're going to talk about lying. For me to lie to you is lying to you. For me, when I'm lying to me, then I'm lying to everybody else. And those lies that we pick up on are, I'm away on a vacation, no one's gonna know. I'm gonna eat one cookie, like, oh my God, like what's the big deal? You know what? It's Friday, I'm only gonna do it till Monday, and then I'm gonna stop on Monday. It's not gonna make a difference, or I'm not gonna feel any different, or, you know, I could stop at any time. I know that I can because I've just had 8 months clean. So I know that I'm gonna stop, you know, after my 3rd bagel. You know, whatever it is, it's all bullshit. They're all lies that we tell ourselves, all manipulations, a way that we manipulate ourselves so that we can use. And you know, guilt means I did something wrong, and shame is I'm a horrible person. And I'll tell you, there's some guilt that comes along with it, but the shame for me was unbearable. The shame with my relapse was unbearable. You know, the first time I had the thing, I had a 17-year-old son that died in an accident, and everybody said, you know what, if that happened to you, you drink too. And then everybody signed on to my bullshit. Everybody did, because poor Felice, that poor victim Felice. And yes, that did happen, but it happened out there in the world. And it was up to me to learn how to deal with what life had handed me, the way that the universe was turning. Not up to me to bury I was the straightest person in the world when my kid died. Not up to me to bury myself in booze or in drugs because I didn't know how to live. Right? So most importantly, when we step into recovery, is that we learn to stop lying to ourselves so that we could stop lying to everybody else. We learn that it's okay to let go of the shame. And that, like I said, inside, that there's a good person in there, right? That's just ready to come out and be clean and be of service. When I'm in active addiction, I could do stuff, but I can't spiritually be of service to anybody else. Right? When I'm in active addiction, I do things because it makes me look good on the outside. Not because I'm doing my best to do my best and I'm doing the next right thing, because I'm not. I'm a lion to me and to everybody else around me. So, we're gonna hear from Laura now. Hey, Laura.
Actually, Shelly Ann.
Oh, Shelly Ann. We're gonna hear from Laura. We're gonna hear from you right after Shelly Ann. Shelly Ann.
Okay.
Where's Shelly Ann? I can't see up on the
To the
screen.
left.
She's on
Oh,
the-
hi. How are ya?
You're on mute.
Hi,
I thought
doing good. So I just wanted to share a few things with you. So Saturday I was at the workshop online, and I have to say that I felt very convicted by the whole talk about food addiction. And
You felt very what? I didn't hear.
Conflicted.
Conflicted?
What's that?
What's that? Yeah, I'm having difficulty hearing you. Give me 1 sec. Go ahead.
She's on mute again.
So,
Oh.
on Saturday, after the discussion about food addiction, I was feeling really convicted by that because I had never really thought about my weight gain as an addiction, and until we had that meeting. And so, I did really well, and I have been doing really well, with my diet and with eating and watching for triggers and seeing what the problem is.
Well, the
We had a potluck at work on Monday. Can you hear me?
yeah.
We can hear
Okay. Okay, so we had potluck at work on Monday, and I thought, well, it was a birthday party, there were gonna be sweet treats there. And I thought, is this really an addiction, or isn't this addiction? And I used. And I thought, I'm just gonna kind of see where my head goes after this. And the very next thing I thought of as soon as that piece of cake was gone was, I really would like another piece of cake.
Duh.
It was very clear to me that definitely is addiction. I never really thought about it that way.
Okay, so you're talking about the food, the dopamine receptor, and the physical part of the addiction, which that physical part is gonna go away in a couple of days, right? So what we talk about here actually is stepping into recovery. And when we step into recovery, remember, me not using doesn't mean that I'm in recovery. It means that I'm abstinent. I have to stay abstinent to step into recovery. Me being in recovery allows me the choice to not pick up. It allows me to look at the world differently. So I'm going to learn some recovery so that I can learn to feel differently and I could learn to feel better and have a better understanding of who I am and a better understanding of how I live a happier life and make that choice not to pick up. Not using doesn't have to do with recovery. It has to do with abstinence. The recovery that we speak about is a spiritual recovery. It's about looking at the world differently and learning how to get some happy.
And I'd like to just bring up
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing, because this is a big point. So when we speak of abstinence, we're speaking of absolute abstinence. We're not talking of cutting down and just using a little bit. So we've cut down what we were using before, because that's not going to clean up anything. It's still going to keep us in that active addiction. It's more going that cold turkey. When they say cold turkey, they mean cold turkey, because it's stopping. It's a black and white kind of thing. So we can't just stop one thing and pick up the other thing and say that we're abstinent. It becomes a whole great picture. So it's everything that contributes to our addiction that we just stop, so we're able to clean up and start thinking straight. And the amazing thing for me is when I stopped, I could see it in my body. I wasn't as bloated, my joints weren't as sore. There were like so many things besides my brain clearing up and the fog clearing up and not being in that brain fog first thing in the morning. You know, for me, I forget that I'm allergic to certain things. As an addict, when I put certain things in my body, I react to them. You know, they want me, I start obsessing about it. I want more of that stuff and I want to add more into my body. And it definitely affects me. It's like a poison, and my mind, that's all I fixate on, and that's all I'm thinking about, and I become obsessive and I become compulsive, and my world becomes very small. The minute that's cleaned up, then I can start seeing things a little bit more clearly, and I can hear things differently. You know, the weirdest thing is when I first started working on my recovery, I didn't hear 3/4 of the things that were coming at me, because I was questioning and thinking and sitting in my head a lot of the time, rather than just being present and taking it in and listening. I was sitting there going, but and why, and having all these questions, which is perfect and a healthy place to start. But it is a process, you know, and it's something that starts with absolutely not picking up.
Yeah, and so actually, we are going to run a different type of workshop, because we talk about how it's not about the food. I want to do a one day thing about physically, physiologically, what happens to our bodies when we're in active addiction, no matter what we're picking up. I had somebody made a comment, I think last week. It was like, oh, you're restricting certain food groups. You guys, cake isn't a food group. Spaghetti isn't a food group. Those fall into the food group of carbohydrate. Broccoli and onions and carrots and strawberries are carbohydrates. They're not going to stimulate the dopamine receptor and put you back into active addiction. So no, we don't talk about restricting any food group. We talk about restricting the stuff that touches that receptor, which are starches and sweets. Nobody ever made chocolate bars a food group. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I slept through that class. But nobody ever made spaghetti and rice and pasta and yuca and potatoes and Oreos a food group. So we're talking about stuff that converts quickly to simple sugars. And I definitely want to do a whole one day affair where everybody can come in, ask all their questions, scream about how I'm wrong and I'm unfair and that it can never be done, which, by the way, it can be done. And
So-
it is done.
So we're actually going to start, we're going to have a couple of have lunch with us sessions.
I'm
And
gonna
those
have to
are
quit
workshops.
my jobs.
So
other jobs.
the Thursday schedule in October is going to start changing. We're going to do more workshops, and they're going to be at different times, because people complain that they're working and they've got different things going on. So we will keep you updated. We're not even in September yet, so we will let you know. So just stay in touch with us. It's really important. But also, Shelley Ann, one of the other things about recovery is being happy in ourselves and with ourselves, no matter what anyone else around us is doing. You know, that's the greatest learning for me, is that it doesn't matter what my husband or my ex or my kids or my boss or anyone else is doing. They're going to do whatever they're doing, and stepping into recovery is what I'm doing and how I'm reacting and my choices and the things I'm being responsible for and my happiness. And that doesn't mean that I'm not being responsible and showing up and doing all the things that I need to do, but it's a different it's a shift in perspective.
Right, it's understanding that I don't have control over whether my husband's happy. I could just show up and do my best, and that's it. Ange.
No, never mind.
Why?
Because I'm not sure.
Okay, well, we don't have an ego challenge here. Angela doesn't want to say anything if she's not sure.
Well, it
Say it.
doesn't have to do with ego.
Say it.
I was thinking, Haiti was saying, well, recovery is about being happy. And I was just going to say, like, this week, I got to see that it's not always so. It's not a one-way thing.
That as far as being happy?
Right.
But that's why so I think what you meant was the reason why why we're gonna stay in recovery and work on our recovery is so we can get more happy.
Right.
You're gonna say, are we gonna be happy all the time? Of course
Right.
not.
It's not a thing that
Is life
just-
gonna show up? Of course it is.
Right.
So that's what you were saying, right?
Yeah.
Just to clarify to the
Yeah,
folks?
because when you're saying that to somebody who's in active addiction right now, it can sound not real.
Like happy horse shit?
Yeah.
No, absolutely.
So
yeah.
I'm just saying
Yeah,
for
thank
the
you.
people that are out there in active addiction and are struggling.
Right.
Like,
It doesn't
it's-
mean that we wake up, and I said this the other day, we don't fart rainbows because we're in recovery. It doesn't work like that. Life is still going to show up, and people are going to die, and we're going to lose jobs, and someone is going to cut us off in traffic, and someone's going to be mean, and it's going to rain and pour when I have on my favorite shirt, and those things.
My recovery a little bit on Monday, and I was really pissed with you.
Yeah, right. That
Right,
happened.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, like,
Yeah. Which really bothers me, by the way, can you tell? Yeah, and so you were
Yeah.
going through something that in the past you would have kept in your head for a month,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
And brooded about it and worried about it, and instead something came up, you said what you had to say, we worked through it, and you moved on.
Right.
That gives you a whole lot of happy, right? Because before you would have been sad or miserable, even if it would have been for a day and a half, or for an hour instead of 10 minutes.
Right.
It still affords you more happy. Right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, because I talk like everybody knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So thank you for pointing that out, that a lot of times nobody knows what I'm talking about. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks. Laura? Hi.
Hi.
You have anything to say, Madam Laura?
Hi.
Hi.
So, I'm like moving along, I'm progressing for sure. So remember I was angry and irritable and pissed off.
And discontent.
Touchy for a little while.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I'm shaking my head. Yeah, I remember all that.
Okay, so I'm not so angry, irritable, and bitchy right now. I'm more detached from
Okay.
things. Like things don't seem to be bothering me so much, and that's pretty great. I'm doing well. I don't feel like I'm really caught up in anything. There's nothing bad going on. Well, there's a lot going on, but I'm not caught up in it, and that's good.
So remember, when we're used to being the people who completely detach, when we're younger and we completely detach, as we get older and we stop overreacting, we're going to see what the difference is between just not overreacting and detachment. Because for us, not overreacting will feel like detachment.
Yeah.
Detachment is despondence. I just saw somebody fall off their bicycle and crack their head open, and okay, that happened, I don't care. I have no feeling about it. Somebody that I love is crying and hurt, and I have no feeling about it. That's detachment. Somebody talking about how, they can't believe that somebody cut them off in traffic, and you saying, okay, that happened. That's not detachment. It's just not overreacting.
Okay,
Okay, it's not reacting. It's just living your life.
well, that's what I'm doing these days.
Yeah. So that's awesome. And then we'll talk more about the difference between detachment and just not overreacting, because it's very important. Because for people, when people detach, they isolate, and that's the beginning of their active addiction. So there's a difference. So thank you so much for bringing. It's funny because remember, there used to be times you're like, oh, I didn't want to say anything but you say things that are important because other people need to hear that, because that's something that's very real, especially in the beginning of recovery, and we need to pay attention to that. So thank you for sharing that. We have like 2 minutes left.
We're gonna have 5, so.
1 minute.
So I just wanted to actually-
speak to those people.
I know we never got to everyone. I just wanted to clarify certain things because we have a lot of new people that join us. The workshop that we've been talking about that people participated in last weekend was about, am I an addict? What does that look like? And it was a really intensive 2-hour workshop that people got totally triggered, and
Everybody was pissed
everyone
off. It was
was
awesome.
craving
It was
it,
awesome. I wish you were here.
which
Everybody
is
was
awesome.
so mad.
So it was a really effective workshop, and we're going to be doing more of those. We had such great feedback, and also on the 20th of October, we're running an early bird special at the moment, so people are getting $100 off the workshop.
Okay.
If they sign up tonight.
Okay.
It's only for the next 10 days.
Okay.
And I must tell you, our old participants speak to me because we've got a special
Our
gift.
old participants.
But also what it gives you is if you participate in our workshop, it gives you free access to any of the 2-hour workshops that we do if you do the 7-week intensive, so you can keep working on your recovery, and that is for a year. So that is an amazing thing to work on. We're also shifting over to a new website where we're going to have our own private forum because a lot of people don't feel comfortable on Facebook, and we're going to take it off that platform and just have our own space. And we'll keep you updated with that and meeting changes and different times and different options, because we really are trying to accommodate as many people as possible, because we want the message to get out there that recovery is possible and it's absolutely awesome.
And with people feeling safe.
And people
To share
feeling
what they're
safe
sharing.
also. And I lost my total train of
That's
thought
okay, because
because-
it's 8 o'clock, so the train
the homework.
came to a stop.
Right, and the homework. So we posted up what are your emotional triggers. It's on what's eating you and what is your solution. So we'll discuss it on Sunday.
Okay, we will, and I'm so blessed and grateful to be in recovery. Thank you guys for sharing my recovery, for helping me to stay in recovery. This was our Thursday night Why Wait for Recovery community meeting.
And we'll see you Sunday at 9:30 Eastern Standard Time. We look forward to connecting with you then.
Peace
Peace out,
guys.
everyone. Bye. I love you. Bye.